jumping into the news. We had to jump in with this because this was the big story this week. So, Trump and Vance are having a hard time hitting Harris and Walz. Trump and Vance are still getting they're weird. They don't really know what they're talking about. They're yo-yoing back and forth on abortion, where they're all for banning abortion, and now they realize, oh, that's politically not good, so we got to sort of walk that back. And then, of course, then they got yelled at by the evangelicals, so then they walked it forward again. So they're trying to do this balancing act, and it's not working. So Trump thinks he's got something. Harris was vice president during the withdrawal in Afghanistan, and 13 of our service members died during that withdrawal. It was a bad withdrawal, and she was the VP when it happened. And I'll get into a little bit why that happened. So Trump did this wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington, and they invited Kamala Harris to show up. But he turned it into a photo op at Arlington National Cemetery, where we bury our troops, especially troops that died in battle. And he did a photo op at the graves of dead troops, which is illegal. We're not real traditionalists. The U.S. is pretty laid back about a lot of shit. We're not like England. But Arlington Cemetery doing a photo op over our dead veterans? Nah, it's something that we take pretty fucking seriously. So here's Trump doing it. The Army had to rebuke him for it. But we'll just watch a little bit of this clip, because this is fucking insane to me that you would do that. It's how little he cares about soldiers or thinks of them.
Or former President Donald Trump explicitly, but it's also very clear to what it's referring. Here is a part of this statement. Let me read this to you. Participants in the August 26th ceremony and subsequent Section 60 visit were made aware of federal laws, Army regulations, and DoD policies which clearly prohibit political activities. An Arlington National Cemetery employee who attempted to ensure adherence to these rules was abruptly pushed aside. ANC is a national shrine to the honored dead of the armed forces, and its dedicated staff will continue to ensure public ceremonies are conducted with dignity and respect. In that statement, the Army basically says the visit as it was carried out in Section 60, which is where fallen service members from Iraq and Afghanistan are buried, was a violation of federal law. That law explicitly states memorial services and ceremonies at Army National Military Cemeteries will not include partisan political activities. That's where they say the visit violated federal law. But afterwards, a member of the Trump campaign also suggested the Arlington employee with which this altercation happened was, quote, a despicable individual, and someone even suggested that she might have mental health issues. Here, the Army stood by their employee, praising her professionalism and saying it's an incredibly important and sacred job she has at Arlington National Cemetery. Once again, Manu, an incredible statement in this rebuke of the campaign and, of course, standing up for the employee involved in it.
All right, so the Army... If the Army is writing a letter to rebuke you and you're a politician, the Army tries to stay completely apolitical. All of our military branches do. They try not to get involved in that at all. They don't ever want to do that. So if they're writing a letter to rebuke you, you really fucked up. And this is a big deal. So they got him, you saw him trying to put the flowers down, but he's too fat to bend over. And then he's got pictures of him giving the thumbs up over the gravestones of guys who died in combat. Smiling.
You're like, okay, guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really tacky shit. On top of the facts, the employee there was trying to tell them, you're in violation of the rule of Section 60. You can't be doing photo ops for political reasons at Arlington Cemetery. Right? Because... I'll tell you why, because it's tacky in the sense of, look, let's say you serve your country, and you're doing it because you believe in the country, you know, it's honorable thing to do, right? Well, now you can know that if you do that and you die in battle, that we're not going to honor you, we're going to use you as a political prop, or your grave as a political prop going forward. Congratulations, thanks for dying for us, dipshit. That's what Donald Trump just did. And it looks bad on the military. It looks bad on the country. Like, we don't give a shit. Like, you're just cannon fodder. We don't really actually respect what you do. And Trump doesn't. That's why he did it. He doesn't have a clue. But the employee came in. She tried to stop him. They literally shoved her out of the way. And then later on, she filed a complaint. She didn't press charges, but she filed a complaint. And they said, well, she was really rude and she probably has some mental problem. That's what they said about the woman who works at Arlington. And the Army's like, no, she was being professional. You guys were being dicks. And so they're standing behind their employee. But that was, I mean, just horrific shit. But the whole thing about this, just to sum it up for the history, so back in 2020, while Trump was still president, right? We'd been in Afghanistan for, God, what, 18 years, 17 years at that point? And every president before kind of kicked it down the road. Obama kind of kicked it down the road. Bush kicked it down the road. Because it was going to be a nightmare. Because basically Afghanistan is not a country in the heightened sense. It's mostly 6 or 7 warring tribes. And the biggest one, the one that's the most powerful, is the Taliban. And the reason they're the most powerful is because we armed them and trained them in the 80s to fight the Soviets. And so the Taliban, who also is enemies of the United States now, right, who did 9/11, they were going to take over. And so Trump went in and said, look, guys, you can take over, we'll get out of Afghanistan, right? We'll bail out, you can take over, and the whole country can be yours. But you got to give me like 12 months or 14 months, whatever it is, with no incidents or conflicts or anything like that. Because he was running for election, he didn't want any of that, right? So he's basically saying, I'll give you Afghanistan if you just guys don't cause me problems until after I win the election. And then I'll give it to you. Well, he lost the election, right? And he'd already kind of made that deal with Afghanistan, with the Taliban. And Biden just said, you know what, fuck it, I'll take the PR hit. We need to get out of Afghanistan anyway. And no matter what we do, it's going to suck. And you're going to be the bad guy. There's just no way to win that. You either stay indefinitely in a country that doesn't want you there, or you leave and you hand it over to a terrorist organization. There just really wasn't anything else you could do as far as options go. So Biden just said, fuck it, we'll get out. And they did. And unfortunately, 13 guys did die in that process. But how many more of our troops would have died had we stayed in for the last 4 years? 3.5 years.
Oh, I mean, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, dozens more. So he actually probably saved lives by doing it this way and taking the PR hit. And he's never really recovered from that. So Trump's idea was, oh, we'll go do a wreath-laying ceremony for these 13 guys that died, who basically died because of the way I set this up. Me, Donald Trump. But the American people don't know that. And I haven't given a shit about him until now because I'm losing in the polls. So I'm going to now do this big public wreath-laying ceremony and photo op thing over these guys' graves to use them as political props, because what I'm going to do is say Kamala was the one who screwed this whole thing up, when it really didn't have a whole lot to do with her. This was Biden's decision to keep Trump's promise that Trump kind of set him up, and he knew it.
So I would not expect Trump, or, I mean, even Biden for that matter, I wouldn't expect one individual to, like, just happen to know that it was illegal to do this. But when you have a staff of that many people working for you and setting up your various PR situations, you would think that they would do their homework on something and find out that you can't actually do that.
Well,
so either nobody bothered, or they informed him and he said, I don't care. Either
oh, he informed him and he said, I don't care. So what happens is,
either way, that's not good. Whether he's just too stupid or doesn't care, they're both bad looks.
He doesn't care, because he got notified at least twice. Because once when they said, hey, we're going to come to Arlington and do a thing, they would have sent him a notification saying, oh, by the way, remember, you can't do political photo ops here. It's part of Article 60. It's against the law. You cannot do that. He would have been notified. Then,
I'm sure,
when he got there, started doing the photo op, the employee ran out there and said, hey, you guys can't do this. And they shoved her out of the way. Maybe we should have Marines guard Arlington and just take a shot at politicians who try to do that.
Just pick them off one by one.
Yeah. Trump likes North Korea. They do shit like that in North Korea. Come on. Yeah. Fucking douchebag. Anyway, just horrible thing. But here's the deal. It's so stupid because, look, most Americans don't know anything about that. About the Afghan withdrawal or any of that shit. Right? They don't know that 13 people died. Most of them don't really care. I mean, it's not something that affects you day to day. But the thing about it, too, is those of us who, like me, who do know about it, also probably know the history behind it, know that really this is Trump's fuck up, and Biden just took the out. Because it was the only smart option left on the table, and even then it was a bad option. So, anyway, I don't think it's going to work for Trump. I think this has just made it a worse firestorm, because now he's the guy dancing on the graves of our dead soldiers. Doing photo ops and smiling, giving thumbs up over a corpse of somebody who died in combat. I mean, he's gloating over it like it's a deer he shot. One of our troops. It's just fucked up. It's just fucked up.